I'm recording. All right, we're ready to go. So again, I'll reintroduce myself. My name is Kyle Kassabaum. I am one of the counselors at Archie Williams High School. And this is a presentation that I like to do every year because I think that sophomores have so many more choices than they're used to having. I mean, in terms of middle school and then going into ninth grade and going into 10th grade. This is the first time where I think that there's just a huge amount of new choices. And I just want to make sure that parents are aware of what these options and what these choices mean and what they're going to mean to their students for their students next year and even really the next 2 years. And also, I just want to go over again what students' college requirements are and what their high school graduation requirements are, just to make sure that everybody's on the same page in terms of how that goes. So just to start, we're going to talk about academies and new electives. I just said all this. Graduation requirements, wanting students to take challenging courses, but also maintain balance. And that's something that that we talk about over and over and over again, and we'll get more to it. And really, the big important thing is that schedule requests are going to be due on February 6th. So our hope is that all students have their requests in on that date. Now, obviously, if students don't get their requests in by that date, that doesn't mean that they're going to be shut out of classes by any sense, but that it gives us an initial count so we know how many teachers we need to teach however many subjects, because we really base the amount of classes that we're offering and what classes that we're offering on what students are selecting. So it's helpful for us to know that as early as possible. So a couple of the big things. When sophomores at Archie Williams are going into their junior year, they have a choice to join an academy. Now, there are 3 academies, and most of our students do not join an academy. So I would say the academy students maybe take up about a quarter of the sophomore student population, and it might not even be that big. But there are a good chunk of students who do join the academies, and they are 2-year programs, and they're taking these programs with a cohort. So for those students that really enjoy the community that the small learning communities gave them, really like group projects and doing presentations, this is a good opportunity for them. Obviously, if they're interested in the subject matter that these academies are about. So the first one is ComAcad. ComAcad has been around for a really long time. Last year, we did not have enough students sign up for it to make a junior class, but we're putting the option out there again because it's an awesome program and we'd love to see it continue if there's interest. And obviously, if there's not interest, then we won't run the program. ComAcad stands for Communications Academy. The classes that are included next year will be their English course, which will be AP English Language Composition, so AP Comp. As a senior, they would take World Lit and Humanities. And then next year for social studies, they'll be doing US history, and senior year, Gov and Econ, so American government and economics. The elective that comes with that course is digital communications. And in digital communications, they're learning about film editing, producing a film, doing all the sound mixing, all of that really cool stuff. So we've got really great equipment, and we've got teachers who have a ton of experience. Mr. Doherty and Miss Sal have been teaching in ComAcad since before I started at Archie, which was 13 years ago. So they've been doing it for a long time. What's really cool is they're able to kind of mix the subjects together in a sense and bring in this film component to it. So say during an election year, they might do election campaign videos or videos on different propositions that are going on. Maybe they'll read a short story and have for their English class and produce a short film based on that story. So they do a lot of really creative artistic things. I've seen a lot of students in ComAcad go on and do film related things, but oftentimes it's just students that are really interested in the arts because it includes the arts within those core classes. So students are building sets, so they need folks who know how to do engineering. They need folks who can draw and paint and have a creative mind to write screenplays and all of those sorts of things. So really good program if your student is interested in that. And with those classes, they have the three, and then they would obviously have four other courses that that they would be choosing from. The next one is CDisc. Juniors in CDisc do chemistry and environmental science, and then next year they'll be doing U.S. history. Gov and Econ is the social studies class that they'll be doing as a senior. And then they have a class called Workplace Learning as a senior, and that's really a home base for their internship. So the students at the end of their junior year will go out and look for internships for their senior year. Some students don't get those internships locked in until their senior year. And if they're struggling to find an internship, then the program will help them. This academy really focuses on environmental studies and social justice, but I think the environmental studies and environmental sciences part is really kind of at the core. We've seen a lot of students in this program go on and major in marine biology, environmental science, chemistry, other science-related fields. So that's really kind of what the core of that group is about. And with environmental science and protecting our earth, there is that social justice component too. So I've seen students in this program go out and make big changes, such as changing the paper that we use at our school. They've gone in and changed some of the food that we offer in the cafeterias. They'll do some field trips, such as camping trips, beach cleanups. They do a ton of work in restoring our creek there that runs through the back of campus. So a really, really great program for students that have that activism thing in them and or are interested in the sciences, especially when it comes to the life sciences or environmental studies. Team is a little bit different than the other programs, but it essentially works the same. The juniors and the juniors will be taking an English course. They will be taking a class called Wilderness Medicine, which is helping them prepare for being out in the woods. And then there's a leadership course. And then I put TBD on there because I think that there is really a hope and a push to get another core class added in there. So maybe like a U.S. history or something like that. The difference really between team and then the Comic Hat and CDisc is the team is really separated between the juniors and seniors. So the juniors are really a cohort and the seniors are really a cohort. Whereas in Comic Hat and CDisc, although there may be some variation in the classes they take, especially in CDisc, they're really doing a lot of the work together. So there's a little bit more of that kind of mentorship component to it. One of the big things about team is that twice a year, they go out into the Sierras and do these big, huge backpacking trips. And there's a lot of learning and education that goes on during those trips. They're still taking classes while they're out there in the woods. And I find that this group, they do get really super close. The one thing that you need to be mindful of with your students is that there is going to be a chunk of time each semester where they are away. So really planning ahead with their other classes is really important. But the team group does give the students some in-class time to get caught up in those other classes as well, especially in the leadership class. I think they'll have some opportunities there to really make up some of the stuff that they've lost. So AP options. On our website, there is a whole list of all of the AP classes that we have, and you can review that matrix there. Increased elective options. So this is, to me, one of the really cool things as well. So when you get into your junior and senior year, you have classes available to you, such as psychology, street law, which is kind of a study of how the criminal justice system works, history and appreciation of film. You're watching The Graduate, Casablanca, a variety of foreign films and newer films as well, and writing about them and having discussions about them and having the opportunity to watch them in class. Those are all college approved electives. We have a number of AP electives that are offered for juniors and seniors. So AP Computer Science is one. AP Art History is another, and then AP African American Studies. So this is the first year that we've held AP African American Studies, and the students that are in it have said that, yeah, it's an AP class, it's rigorous, but they're really enjoying that, and that's one of the newer ones. So I wanted to highlight it. Other electives, obviously, students can continue to do their art, eventually getting into AP art classes if they'd like, drama and music. The leadership classes are available for sophomores, but generally speaking, it is heavier on the junior senior side. So if your student is interested in peer resource, where they'll give classroom presentations on teen issues and are really trained to mentor other students, that might be a good place for them. Leadership, otherwise known as ASB, they're the ones that are putting on the dances and putting on the rallies, and they're kind of that big school spirit group. Those are all electives as well. So I believe all of the class courses were emailed out to everyone, so you should be able to get a list. If that's something that's missing and you can't find it, you can send your counselor an email, or better yet, have your student come in and ask, and we can either print them out one or email them one, so they can go through all of those. And like I said, if you have any questions that pop up while we're doing this, you can go ahead and throw them in the chat box. So signing up for academies or leadership. So when the students are going through Synergy, or I think it's called for them Student View, really what triggers for us that they are signing up for one of these electives is if they select the elective, or the triggers that they're selecting these academies is if they're selecting those electives that are part of those academies. So if your student is interested in signing up for CDISC, there is a course in there they can choose that is called CDISC Environmental Science. That will let us know for sure that that's a course that they want to take, or an academy that they want to take. For ComAcad, it's Digital Communications, and for Team, it's Wilderness Medicine. So that is what lets us know that that's what your students want to do. They want to join that academy for their junior year. To sign up for Peer Resource or ASB, you can simply sign up for Leadership Peer Resource or Leadership ASB, and that will let us know that they're signing up for that. And there was an application for those programs that was emailed out, so students can start filling those applications out as well. All right. Moving on. So here are some big dates that are coming up. Some of them have passed. Well, one of them's today. So we had the course workshops today. So students were able to go around and talk to or learn from the teachers who are doing these academies, these AP classes, and electives, get a little sense from the teachers what the class is going to be about. In some cases, the students that are currently in those classes talked a little bit about what's going on in them. So hopefully they got a little bit of an idea of what they wanted to take through those. Course selection opens up on Synergy January 27th. I was actually told today by a student that they logged in and started signing up for their classes today, so good on them. So I think if you go into Student View now, you can start selecting the courses. I want to make sure that everybody knows it's not first come, first serve. Everybody who gets their course selections in by February 6th, those selections all go in the same bucket. So there's no need to rush it. And if they have questions, we're here for that. Let's see, we did academy presentations during tutorial, I believe last week. And then next week, we are actually doing sophomore scheduling workshops during their PE courses. So next, I believe it's Tuesday and Friday, we're going to be pulling sophomores out of PE and actually sitting them down with computers, going through their options and sitting down with students to help help them get their classes in. And obviously, then the students know this as they were bombarding the counseling office today after tutorial or during tutorial, they can always come see us. So please let us know if, or please let your students know that if they have questions, they want to sit down with their counselor and go over things. That's awesome. Tell them to come into the office, drop in a pass, or send us an email individually, and we'll make sure to check in with them. It's not urgent that they do so this week. Again, we're going to be spending a lot of time with them next week during their PE courses, but as I've known throughout the years, some students really want to sit down and talk individually with their counselor and go over their different options. And it's one of my favorite times of the year in the sense that, freshman year, you don't get a sense to really sit down and talk with all of the students and have these individual meetings to kind of get to know them and start building those relationships. And this is really the time where that starts happening. And then next year, going into junior year, when we're talking about college, it's great to have a little bit of a sense of who the student is and have that rapport with them and build that trust. So we love seeing the students come in and talk a little bit about their schedules. If they have questions, if they don't have any questions, great. But if they haven't met their counselor yet, we definitely hope that that they come in and say hi at some point. I'm going to go through a couple of these questions now. AP African American Studies, is social studies or an elective? So that's a really good question. And that's one that a lot of students have come up with or come and asked us about, because I think that there was some confusion on something that was either emailed out or posted on a website. It is an AP elective. So that cannot take the place of AP US history or regular US history. So US history is a graduation requirement, and AP African American Studies is something that they would take along with that. Or maybe they would take it their senior year. Let's see here. Can you confirm that honors and AP classes are still on the 5-point scale, or have they been adjusted down to the 4-point scale? So the AP classes are definitely, you're still getting that grade bump for that. So if you get an A, it's worth 4 points or 5 points. If you get a B, it's worth 4 points, and so on. With the honors classes, they are still getting that grade bump within our GPA. The difference is with the honors classes, many colleges do not give them that grade bump. So while their GPA at Archie Williams will get a little bit of a bump, when a student applies to a college, oftentimes those colleges are putting their grades through their own calculation system. And many of the colleges do not give the grade bump for those honors classes. And a little note I got here. So just a good heads up for everybody. A lot of these awesome, unique programs that we have here are possible because of the donations that we get through the Falcon Foundation. So please contribute, or please consider contributing if it's something that you're able to do and something that you're interested in doing. Falcon Foundation has been an incredible source of help for some of our students that need a little bit of extra support due to some challenges at home, but mostly it's really been about trying to build our opportunities and options at Archie Williams. Let's see, is there a makeup day for course workshops? There is not, unfortunately, because we really use a whole tutorial period for it. And there's just not a way to run that program twice. But I would say is if the student missed it and they want to learn specifically about a class, they should go up and talk to the teacher who teaches that class during a tutorial or in between classes or during a break or during lunch. If they're having a hard time tracking that teacher down, have them come see their counselor and we'll make sure to get the information that they need. And yes, somebody had wanted me to confirm that a student was able to go into student view and select their courses. Yes, that's what I was told by a student. My understanding was that we were not opening the course requests until January 27th, but it might be that our data specialist just got everything in there. Again, there's no urgency to doing it. There's no first come, first serve. But if the student wants to go in there and start plugging in their classes, it sounds like that is available to them now. So as far as Academy signups go, yes, it is not guaranteed that a student will get into the Academy if they sign up for it. My hope is that every student who signs up for an Academy will get into the Academy they want to sign up for. It just depends on numbers. So with team, for a variety of reasons, we can only take 26. So if 28 students sign up for it, it's a lottery, and then there'll be a waiting list. And with CDisc, generally speaking, it's been between 28 and 30, just because we're only allowed to have so many kids in chemistry courses for safety reasons. Some years there's not been wait lists, and some years there's been huge wait lists. So it really kind of varies from year to year on how that works. And yes, they are totally random. Oh, somebody said there are people in the waiting room. Oh my God, you're right. All right, for those of you just joining, I apologize. I guess that's the
I guess.
that is the negative to me having this evening on myself and having the shared screen and all of that. Sometimes I miss the waiting room. This will be recorded. And again, if you missed the first part, you'll be able to watch the recording. We'll have that sent out tomorrow. Or please have your student come in and ask questions. Or if you have questions, please let us know. Can you take APUSH if you're taking CDisc? Technically, yes. But the unfortunate part to that is students do need to be in all of their CDisc classes because there is so much group work. So if a student wants to take APUSH and CDisc, they can do it. But during the U.S. history portion of their CDisc classes, they will basically be considered a peer tutor in that class. So it would take away an elective option for them. So that's kind of the bummer of that. But and the same is the case with Comic CAD. There are so many projects where the students need to be collaborating, and sometimes during their chemistry period, they'll go in with the U.S. history teacher, and so on and so forth. So it is important that they are enrolled in all of those classes. So to go back, there's a question about the difference between ASB and peer resource, or talk a little bit about what those programs are. ASB is the traditional leadership class where they're putting on social events, such as the rallies, such as the dances, and some campus-wide activities. And the peer resource group, it's really kind of about going into classrooms, presenting about teen issues. So they'll talk about mental health, they'll talk about sexual health, they'll talk about substance abuse, and they're also trained on how to mentor and work with students that might feel like they want another teenager to talk to, rather than coming in and talking to their counselor or their wellness provider about whatever's going on in their life. So there are some differences, and they do put on some big school-wide activities too that, again, are mostly in and around a variety of teenage-related issues. And I'll be able to share the presentation and the video that'll all go out tomorrow. There was a question about, can students request a specific teacher for a class? Sort of, not really. I always tell students that if they have a specific request for a teacher, to let me know, and we keep track of that. If a student has had one teacher for the last 2 years and they just want a different experience in that subject, then totally get it. Let the counselor know, and we'll do our best to make sure that they get a new experience the next year. If it's just based on kind of a rumor because their teacher wasn't as nice or was harder than the other one, I mean, again, keep track of those requests, but those are not things that we can promise. And they're kind of secondary to making sure that our class sizes are balanced and schedule stuff kind of gets in the way too. And so if that specific teacher is teaching during another class that your student is taking, then it wouldn't work. Right. Are AP classes recommended by teachers or is it student prerogative? So, and what is the benefit of the AP class? They're not teacher recommended. Sometimes teachers will tell a student like, hey, I really think you should take AP English or AP History or whatever it is. But the students are allowed to sign up for these courses. We love to have a conversation with students, especially if they're signing up for a bunch of AP classes, because they take up so much time, especially if a student has family responsibilities, a sport, is performing in the drama productions. Those are all things that we need to think about, right? If the student has a job. So there's only so much time in the day for all of these classes. The benefit of taking the AP class is if it is a subject that your student is really interested in, it allows them to really deep dive in it. And colleges do look at the AP classes. So when I was talking before about the difference between honors and AP, students will always get a grade bump for AP classes in terms of college. And with the honors classes, they'll get a grade bump on their Archie transcript, but the college may not give them the grade bump, but they will still see that they were in an honors course. Can you do AP Chem and CDisc? Absolutely. They would do AP Chemistry as a senior. So to do AP Chemistry, you need to do regular chemistry first. If a student has a backup choice for an academy, please have them come talk to their counselor. So yes, the Synergy will really only allow them to select one academy. But if say they really want to do team, but CDisc is a cool backup for them, have them come talk to their counselor and we'll make sure that they're able to be put in the kind of CDisc bucket as well. All right. So I'm being told that the AP matrix is no longer on the website. I will get that out to everybody tomorrow with this. We had our website changed over the summer, and it seems like maybe some things are missing from there. Do you have to take chemistry first before AP Bio? No. AP Bio is totally available for juniors. Oh. Somebody found the AP matrix up there. Thank you. Oh, it's there in a direct message. I will put that out to everybody. Let's see. All right. Is it true that colleges look for 4 AP courses for both junior and senior year? No. I mean, if you have a student that is really dialed in and has the bandwidth to take 4 AP classes a year, that's great. But we generally are not recommending that students take 4 AP classes a year. It's a lot. It's a lot to handle. So it's not impossible. We definitely have students do it. But 4 each year is pretty challenging. It looks like the AP honors courses are under the academics tab on the website. So I apologize for those that didn't see it before. All right, I'm going to get back to the presentation. So I want to talk about math choices a little bit. So if you look up, you can see sort of the different math pathways. So we look under 10th grade. If your student is currently in advanced algebra, chances are they will be taking pre-calculus as an 11th grader. Some students are pretty done with algebra, calculus type math by that point, and some will only take AP statistics going into their junior year. I generally say that if you're feeling good about advanced algebra and it worked out well for you, I think pre-calc is a really good next step. And then maybe doing AP stat as a senior rather than one of the AP calc classes. There are some students that are super math focused that will take pre-calc and AP Stat as juniors, so they'll double up on it. Again, it's kind of a student by student thing. So definitely something that you'd want to talk to your student about. If your student took geometry as a ninth grader, and it was pretty rocky and ended up being recommended to do algebra 1, 2, as a 10th grader, then they would go on to either advanced algebra or intermediate algebra. Just the same as if they're in geometry this year, they would go on to advanced algebra or intermediate algebra. So just to kind of give you a sense of what intermediate algebra is, I usually say it's about 85% of what advanced algebra covers. So they're able to do the work at a slower pace, which allows students who struggle in math to really catch it and get a hold of it. There's not nearly as much homework. Mr. Marshall, who's taught the course for years, really tries to keep all of the work in class. And if the student's on task and doing their thing, it really mostly is. It still counts for Algebra 2 credit. So it is an approved Algebra 2 course for colleges. The one caveat is, generally speaking, if you're going to take intermediate algebra, you're probably going to go on to regular statistics as a senior rather than AP Stat or pre-calculus. And then if your student is currently in algebra, they would either take geometry or geometry A. What's really cool about that geometry A class, it was created a few years back. It's really for juniors, or in some cases, seniors only. So if it's a student who really struggles in math, and they're in geometry as a junior, they don't want to be in class with all the freshman whiz kids, and it kind of gets in the way of them being able to learn the stuff, because those freshmen that are really math wizards are, zipping around all over the place. It's a really good opportunity for them to learn the geometry at a pace with their peers, their peer grade, and really get the material. So do students get to choose between advanced algebra and intermediate algebra? Yes, they do. Historically, or in the past, years ago, students who were recommended for intermediate really were pushed hard to take intermediate, but it is the student's choice. I generally say that if the teachers really think strongly that the student should take intermediate, that's usually the right call. I see those students oftentimes go through advanced their first semester and then move on to intermediate their second semester, but not always. There are some students who maybe didn't connect great with the teacher, and the teacher didn't really pick up on how strong of a student they were, or maybe there was some maturation that happened over the summer, and they can go into advanced algebra. So I would say, if you're feeling like your student is a little bit on the cusp, have them have a conversation with the teacher, have them come and talk to their counselor, and we'll go ahead and have that conversation with them and help them make the right choice. So the difference between AP Calculus AB and BC. So if you look at it as AP Calculus ABC, BC is for those really, really strong math students that are not going to need the pre-calc review at the beginning of the year. And there is going to be some material that the AP Calculus BC teacher will send out to those students saying, hey, this is some stuff that you can brush up on over the summer to make sure that you're prepared. That's the biggest difference. So in AP Calculus AB, there is a good chunk of calculus review at the beginning, and in some material that in BC you're going to be expected to know. There aren't summer assignments for BC or anything like that, but there will be some information sent out as far as what they should brush up on. And again, I think that a conversation with the teacher is a really good idea when making that choice. We don't have very many students in AP Calculus at all as juniors, but there are some. If that's the case and you're making that decision, there are students that could take AB as a junior and BC as a senior. I've definitely had students that do that. If they're just exceptionally strong math students, they can take BC as a junior and then just do AP Stat as a senior, or there is a class at College of Marin that really kind of takes over after that AP Calculus BC course. All right, so we're going to go through the difference between the high school graduation requirements versus the college entrance requirements. So again, this is the same for community college as it is for high school graduation. If your student is planning on attending a community college, my assumption is for most of the sophomores, we don't know yet, right? My opinion is always let's have the option and make a decision once we get there. So we want to make sure that all your students have the option to apply for college, and then they can make a choice once they're a senior on what they want to do. Again, I mean, the benefits of community college are huge. Aside from cost, which is massive, they have a much higher chance of being able to transfer from community college to UCLA, UC Santa Barbara, wherever, after finishing up their requirements at the community college. It's a huge advantage if one of those colleges is really a goal for your student. And also some kids aren't ready to move yet. Some kids don't know what they want to study yet. So there's a lot of reasons for it. And we do have students, more so now since COVID than before, doing the community college route, even 4.0 students or students who, maybe not 4.0, but really strong and would have plenty of options otherwise. Many of them are going away for community college now. Santa Barbara City College in Santa Barbara and Cuesta in San Luis Obispo. They have dorms. Feather River up in Northern California, there's dorms and a great community. So if the student wants to do community college, but still wants to have that freshman dorm experience, there are opportunities to do that. So to graduate from, sorry, that was a little bit of a community college ramble for me, but I always want to make sure that students are aware that this is a really good option for them too. So to graduate from high school, you need a grade of D or higher in all of these courses. So 4 years of English, 3 years of math, at least passing Algebra 1, 2, 4 years of history or social studies, 2 years of PE, 1 year of visual or performing arts, and digital communications in the Common Academy does count for that year of visual or performing arts. So if your student's going into their junior year and they haven't done an art class yet, that'll cover that requirement. And then 50 credits of electives. And electives can kind of be thought of as anything other than the core classes. So anything outside of their graduation requirements. So their 4th year of math would be an elective. Or if they do a science after if they do a science their senior year, that would be counted as an elective. I almost never have any students that have any issues covering those elective credits. So even if they're a TA or a peer tutor or anything like that, they'll get elective credits for that. So a D or higher in all of those courses. And to apply to a 4-year college, you need a C or higher in the following. So 4 years of English, 3 years of math through advanced or intermediate algebra. Again, the recommendation would be 4. 2 years of social studies, 2 years of a lab science, but 3 is recommended. In our school district's graduation requirements, you do need 3 years of a science. So students are getting what's recommended just by going through their graduation requirements. But oftentimes, we have a lot of students that end up taking 4 or 5 science classes by the time they graduate anyway. World language. So 2 years is recommended, or 2 years is required. 3 years is recommended, especially by the UC system. So if your student came in as a freshman doing Spanish 3-4, and this year they're in Spanish 5-6, basically they have hit the recommendation. If they go on to AP or 7-8, that's gravy and awesome, because I think learning Spanish or French is a great thing to learn. Obviously, we all think that having a second or third language is great. But if it's not their thing and they struggled through that Spanish 5-6 class, then maybe it's time to start focusing on something else. Visual performing arts, 1 year, and then college prep elective. Again, they'll get that elective just by showing up for their senior year. One thing that I think I forgot to hit on when we were going through elective choices earlier on, there are all of the science classes are considered electives too. So AP Bio, Physiology, Biomed, Honors Physics, AP Environmental Science. These are all elective courses that they can take as well. And then something that I am really hopeful that we can get a ton of students, or as many as possible, to do next year is we're really trying to build our peer tutor program. So what this is a student who uses one of their elective periods to be a peer tutor. Oftentimes we'll have them sitting in kind of like a freshman or sophomore level math class and helping the teacher to sit down with those students and that are struggling and work on their math and help them learn the math.
I'm done with nagging you about it.
And one thing that is really important to me, I work with a lot of our students who are newcomers to the country. So if your student is a Spanish speaker or not even fluent, but can speak Spanish fairly well, we have classes for our English learners that are workshop classes where they're able to sit down and get support on their work. And if there's a student who sits down and can speak their language and help them do math in Spanish, help them learn their science in Spanish, it's been so powerful and such an amazing gift when we have that. And unfortunately, we don't have a ton of students who are bilingual like that, but it's just a really amazing program if you have students that are open to doing that. The peer tutoring is also a benefit for their college applications. If we want to, instead of going towards the goodness of their hearts, it also is something that will benefit them in their college applications because they're able to talk about it as being community service. Oftentimes, the teacher that they are working as a tutor for will be one that they've had and can write them a letter of recommendation and not only speak to them as a student, but also speak to them as a citizen of our campus. So definitely something that we want to continue to encourage for students. Does taking French in 8th grade count as a year for the UC? It kind of depends on where your student's level is. If they're able to come in and take French 3-4 as a freshman, which is basically French 2, then yes, it would count. So we're really going by the level of the language that they're in, not necessarily the specific years. We oftentimes have students that took Spanish or French in middle school. They get to us and they're in Spanish. They start in that Spanish 3-4 class.
Taking your phone in 1 minute.
And they're just not ready for it yet. I'm just going to mute all again there. And sometimes they're not ready yet. So there is, flexibility in that. So yes, it could count. It just sort of depends on where their level is. All right. And here are just some things to think about for students who are planning on applying for a 4-year college. So GPA of 10th and 11th grade is the most important, but your freshman year, you do need to have C's or higher in all of your required classes. The UC and the CSU really focus on those sophomore, junior year grades. But if your student is interested in going to a private school, and most of the out-of-state public schools, they want that entire GPA, including the freshman year. But if your student feels like they didn't really do their best as a sophomore, junior year is huge. And they have this whole semester here to build things up. And then they have their whole junior year as well. SAT and ACT exams are no longer required for most colleges. There are some schools that are starting to bring them back. And And if there's a specific school that your student is continuing to talk about, I would just say go to that school's admissions website and take a look. I can tell you that all of the schools in Florida are requiring the ACT and SAT. And then there's a lot kind of sporadically throughout the country that are requiring them again. For the most part, it's test optional. So if the student feels like they're going to score really well or has scored really well on like a practice, then great, go for it. That can only add to your application. But if a student really is stressed out by test taking or really isn't showing their best self, a lot of students are much better at presenting or much better at doing like a huge project, but test taking is tough, then maybe skip it. The UCs and CSUs don't even look at the SAT and ACT still. So if you're only looking at California public colleges, then there's no reason to even consider the UC or the SAT or ACT. College of Marin classes are an awesome way for the student to get an opportunity to experience a college level course. They can get college credit for that class. So once they start taking College of Marin classes, even while they're in high school, they're building that college transcript. And it's a great way to show schools that you've had that experience of taking college classes. So I love the College of Marin program. I think that the students really do have mostly a really great experience for those. And generally speaking, the students end up doing really well with their grades there. I generally recommend that students take courses there that aren't offered at Archie. We have psychology classes that are they have psychology classes like lifespan psychology or abnormal psychology. So if they really want to build on taking the psychology course they took at Archie, that's an opportunity. Some classes or some students who want to study psychology will just take that intro to psych at College of Marin, but they have media studies classes, sociology, anthropology, ethnic studies, a variety of science classes, whatever. So if your students are interested in taking a class at College of Marin, definitely have them come talk to their counselor. There are summer courses, and then they can also take them during the school year. Some of the classes are online and totally asynchronous. So if that's better for their schedule, that works. But I do think that there is something to be said for going there and being in that college classroom with a lot of adults and people that are really there because they care about their learning. I think it's a great experience for them. So definitely let the counselor know if that's something that they want to see. Those schedules for fall and summer usually come out sometime in mid to late April. Internships. Every Wednesday, we have our internship coordinator, Greg Davison, on campus. He's right in the College and Career Center, which is connected to us, the counseling office. So he's got an office there in a notebook out there in front where students can sign up and he'll pull them the following Wednesday that he's there. Or they can come in and see their counselor and we'll point out where Mr. Davison's office is. But he sets students up with all kinds of cool stuff. So I would definitely take advantage of that. I think that students sometimes don't consider a job as anything that is worthwhile for their college applications. It absolutely is. Babysitting is one thing. It's great to add on there, but I think having a job at, a local shop or for some professional, like a real job that they went out and applied for, really does look great on students' college applications. Community service and volunteering. We've got a community service board up in the College and Career Center. I will say that it's not fully loaded with a bunch of opportunities, but Lisa Newmeyer, our college and career expert, puts every opportunity that comes across her desk up on that board. But for students looking for that sort of information, they can come talk to their counselor and we'll show them a couple of different ways for them to do some searches. And then the extracurricular activities at school. We have so many great clubs, sports, ways to do performances and leadership opportunities that I think it's a really great way to be a part of the school community and show the colleges that you're going to be a part of their school community. All right. So I'm going to stop the share. All right, and go through some of these questions here. So what about the military academies? Is it similar to the UC? From my understanding, the military academies are still going to ask that students take an SAT or ACT. Schools beyond California, can you speak to the ACT and SAT? Yeah, so I do know that every school in Florida requires the SAT and ACT. And there are a number of schools across campus or across the country that are requiring the ACT and SAT again, but it's still not tons. If you simply Google search colleges that require SAT or ACT, you'll get a list there that's pretty accurate. But if there's a specific school that you want to know about, have your student come see us and we'll go through and double check that with them. What's the difference between comm classes and AP classes? Good question. So with an AP class, there is a test at the end of it that is an optional test, but if you take and pass the test, you will get college credit for it. With a College of Marin class, just by taking the course and passing the course, you'll get that college credit. So that's really the main difference. Also, the comm course is a semester long. The AP classes are a full year. That's really the main difference there. Are there paid internships? There could be. So that'd be something that would be good to ask Mr. Davison. Or if your student is going out and researching internships on their own, absolutely an okay question to ask when they're looking into those internships. Most aren't. Most internships are not paid, but I have seen students get paid internships. And I've also seen students do internships that have turned into summer jobs or jobs that have lasted beyond the summer. So a lot of opportunities and possibilities with those. Okay, so to confirm, yeah, the language thing is a little tricky. Okay, to confirm, if they took 3, 4, and 9th and 5, 6, and 10th, then they are okay for languages. Yes, absolutely. They have 3 years of languages per the UC because they're really looking at the level. If a student takes a Spanish, French, or other language course at College of Marin, that one semester actually counts as a full year. So that's something to consider too. I mean, I've had students take Mandarin, Italian, a variety of other languages, sometimes at COM, sometimes through private organizations. So there are ways to do languages other than Spanish or French. If you are going to look at an online private organization for a language course, definitely have your student run that by the counselor because there are many out there that are not approved by the UC or CSU. So we want to make sure that if you're going out and paying for a Spanish class or a French class or a German class or whatever it is, that you're getting your money's worth and you're getting those UC or CSU credits for it. Does taking comm classes in high school or does taking comm classes while in high school boost the GPA? So not on their Archie Williams transcript, but the colleges will often give an AP-like GPA boost for those College of Marin classes. How often do AP classes fill up? And if they don't get into their class, what do you recommend? When will they be notified? Any of the core AP classes, such as AP Comp or AP US History, anything that is one of those core classes, if they sign up for it, they'll get the class. If it is an elective, such as AP African American Studies or AP Computer Sciences, if the class is full and the priority will always go to the seniors, then our recommendation would usually be hold off on that class and you'll be able to take it next year as a senior, and let's find something else here at school. Or if that is a topic that you really want to dive deeper into now, let's look for other ways to do that. And we will notify the students, hopefully in May. That's always the goal. And oftentimes we have our master schedule done and everything ready to go by then. Sometimes, depending on a variety of variables, we won't know until closer to when the school year starts. And we'll be able to work with the students at that point. But my hope is that we would be able to notify the students well before that. In terms of academies and leadership courses, we'll know that well before the end of the school year. So if the academy didn't go well, or the leadership application didn't go well, we will absolutely be able to work with your student and get them into a class that they need by then. Does getting a lower grade, taking a comm class affect the GPA for college? Yeah, it could if you end up submitting that course as one that you took to the college that you're applying to. So if they get a C in, Psych 101 or whatever it is, that will be on their college transcript. Ultimately, I don't think it'll be something that would harm them at all down the road. But yeah, they are starting their college transcript. There's always a drop date, and the comm professor will let them know what that drop date is. So if it's a few weeks into it and the student's like, hey, I can't handle this with all my high school stuff, or maybe this is biting off a little bit more than I was ready to chew at this point, then there is an opportunity to drop it. But they should be well aware of what that drop date is, and it will be on the syllabus that the professor gives out. If a student joins team or CDISC, do you think that checks the extracurricular box for college applications? Yeah, it kind of does, because when they're putting their classes in, let's say the UC application, they're just putting in those classes. So the classes that are in CDISC or the classes that are in Common Cat or Team or whatever. But I always tell the student, also talk about it in your extracurricular activity section, because being in those programs, you are doing things outside of school. Same with peer resource, or same with leadership. Because when you're putting in just a class, you're not really letting them know what the class is. Obviously, UCs know what AP US History is, but they don't necessarily know what you're doing in peer resource or in Common Cat, CDISC, whatever. So it definitely does check that box. Can a student that has 2 years done of Spanish take comm Spanish in the summer, and then they will be all done with Spanish? Yes. If comm is offering Spanish 3 over the summer. That's the caveat to that, is we don't know what comm's summer schedule is going to look like until it's out. It's definitely not as big as what their fall schedule is, so they don't offer quite as much. But we would know that well before your student has to make a decision on that anyway. So if they want to go ahead and plan on that, and then if we have to go back and change something, that's totally okay. Difference between a B or a C in an AP class versus A or a B in a regular class. As far as the GPA goes, a B in an AP counts as the same as an A in a regular class. A C in an AP counts the same as a B in a regular class. But I will say that getting that B in the AP class might be more difficult than getting the A in the regular class. Something to kind of think about. I think it's great for students to challenge themselves, and we want to make sure, I'd love for every student to try an AP class. If they feel like academically that's not something that they can handle with everything else that's going on in their lives, that's okay. You don't need to take a single AP class to get into four-year colleges. There are plenty of colleges out there that you don't need an AP class for, that are really great schools that you heard of, schools where students are going to go on and do great things during and after college. But there are some schools, obviously, that having that rigor is going to be important. If your student's dream was always to go to Cal, then yeah, they're going to need to take some AP classes. But I will say, if they're taking a bunch of AP classes just for that and they're overwhelmed, then it's not going to help them get into Cal. So I want to make sure that we're not stressing them out, overscheduling them, or anything like that. So I think that a reasonable number of AP classes is different for every student, and it's a really good conversation for them to have with their family and with their counselor. Is peer resource very competitive to get into? Do they accept everyone that applies? They don't accept everyone that applies unless only 30 students apply for it. So usually more students apply for it than there is room for. And it varies every year as far as how many more. So is it super competitive? No, but is it competitive to get in? It can be. I would say that if it's something that your student is just dying to do, have him or her come and see their counselor and talk about what are the things that peer resource is really looking for. What are the things that ASB is really looking for? I'm always happy to help a student kind of go through that application and determine what's really the important things to focus on. Prerequisites for AP classes. There are no prerequisites for AP classes other than some of the classes where there's a class before it that they have to take. So AP chemistry, you have to take chemistry first. But in terms of AP comp, AP US history, AP environmental science, AP African American studies, computer science, whatever, we have that door open for all students to take those classes. And we encourage them to challenge themselves. Just again, if they've always struggled in English, if they've always struggled to get a C in English, then maybe taking AP Comp isn't the best idea, and maybe they want to take one more year to really strengthen themselves as an English student and take an AP English class as a senior. But no, there are no specific prerequisites. Can you take AP classes if you are in team? So yes, you can. It kind of depends on the AP class. Probably not English. And depending on what we do with that if we have like a US history class in team next year, it would probably be difficult for them to do that. But eventually they would be able to take AP science classes, AP math classes, AP electives. So as of right now, team doesn't keep you from taking an AP class in general, but probably English or US history would be difficult to take while in team. I've had students in team, however, take English at College of Marin just because they're really into the outdoors, but they're also really into writing and really into reading and wanted to strengthen that skill. So there's ways to kind of add some of that if the student is interested in it. Peer resource and ASB is not grade-based at all. So they do not care what your grades are. It's not part of what determines whether or not a student will get into one of those programs. Those are all the questions that I have written down. Does anybody want to take themselves off mute and ask a question? Or if there's any more questions, feel free to type away either way. Thank you so much. Thank you for the kind words. We're here with your kids, and the stress that these sophomores have in selecting their classes is definitely real. It doesn't have to be. It really doesn't. They've got 2 years left. They've got options outside of what is at Archie to really pursue those specific interests and those kinds of things. But the students really agonize over it sometimes. And just supporting them on making the right decision is what we ask of you. And sending them in to see us when they want to talk about it. For students in sports, let's see. Oh, there's a couple more questions. For students in sports, are AP classes more in the morning or afternoon? So it's really kind of random as far as when those AP classes are going to show up. I will say a few years ago, we had one section of AP chemistry, and for whatever reason, it landed 7th period, which was really hard for those students that needed to leave early. And it's something that admin keeps in the front of their mind when they're making the schedules, is trying to not have those single classes at the very end of the day. So by those single classes, those classes where we maybe only offer one section of it, trying to not have those at the end of the day, so the athletes don't have to miss them. Do kids get credit for peer resource? Yeah, they do get credit. So it's a class that's approved by the UC and CSU for next year and the years going forward. And they're graded based on their participation. So are they respectful? Are they acting positively? Are they taking the initiative to go up and be one of the presenters when they're going into the classes? Are they taking the material seriously? So generally speaking, the kids get really good grades in those classes. It's students who are disruptive or disrespectful that generally don't do as well. So if you are pulling your weight in ASB and peer resource and being a part of the group and being a team player, you're going to get an A. Peer resource again. So we had another question for somebody who may have missed the beginning there because I forgot to let everybody in. Peer resource is a group of students who are, they do presentations on a variety of teen issues. They work really close with our wellness program. And then they also do some mentorship for younger students or and are trained to work with students that maybe have something going on in their lives that they don't feel comfortable talking to an adult about. When did they hear if they made the academy that they wanted? So hopefully, we will have that information ASAP after we get back from February break. They'll know pretty soon. There is a world where we may even know before that. But I would just say that they'll know before the end of February. Is AP Physics or AP Chemistry available to 11th graders? So we only have honors physics. We don't have AP. I know that our teacher, Miss Lieben, is hoping that the curriculum that she's offering in honors physics will will prepare students to take the AP Physics test. But that's kind of up to the student and how much they put into it. Is AP Chemistry available for 11th graders? Generally not. Our districts added a class called Chemistry in the Earth Systems as a requirement 3 or 4 years ago. And that specific chemistry class needs to be taken in order to take AP Chemistry. There's one online program that I know about that you can pay for and do over the summer that offers chemistry in the Earth Systems. And then there's a couple of programs locally. One's called Solo Quest, one's called Fusion. They're really expensive, about probably $1,000 to take that class over the summer. And that would allow the student to take AP Chemistry as a junior. I generally don't recommend the online one because I've just heard students say that it's pretty hard. And doing those labs kind of at home gets a little wonky and a little tricky. But if the student's motivated to do it and feels like they can get it knocked out between June and September, then great. And then the Solo Quest and Fusion ones, if it's really important to them and financially that's not going to be a burden, then those are options and they can come talk to their counselors about it and I'll let them know how to sign up for those. So is it listed somewhere what teachers teach what? So not necessarily. We're not totally sure what teacher is going to teach what class next year. As far as, AP Comp, it's usually a variety of teachers. Sometimes AP Lit is 2 different teachers. Sometimes it's 1. So that's something that we kind of allocate once we know how many sections of each class has to be offered. But there are some classes that we definitely will know. It's not listed anywhere, but have the student talk to their counselor and we'd be able to let them know like, oh yes, this teacher is definitely teaching this class, but that's usually a little bit more for the electives. We can kind of guess as far as the core classes, but we don't know that yet. Is AP US History definitely not an option for team? It's still TBD. And I would say that if a student wants to take AP US history and definitely also wants to take team, they could take AP US history as an elective and have that US history section in team be sort of like a study period, but they have to be within that team group because of the group projects that are being worked on. So it's a little tricky, and because team has an extra elective to it, it would reduce their opportunities to take some other things. If they take the AP physics test, does that count as an AP on their GPA? No, it does not, but they get to show the colleges that they've applied to that they took and passed the AP physics test, and that's not nothing. That's a pretty cool thing. Those are the questions I got. We're here, and we will be here with you every step in the way for the next 2.5 years. So look forward to speaking to your students. Please don't hesitate to let me know if you've got questions. We're going to send this information out. Thanks for spending partially a part of your Thursday night. Wilderness medicine is only available in team. That one just popped in. All right. Anything else? Send your kids in. We want to see them. We want to talk to them. All right. Have a great night and a great rest of the week. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
You. Thanks for coming, Nicole.
Thanks for the info. Good night.
Absolutely. Good night.